Unceded is way more than just a word or a hashtag. It's kind of like the post that I hang my work on, because this is still my ancestors' land, and not just for the sake of it being on our land, but because I have duties and responsibilities, and I carry them out with honor and with great pride, and as we've always been taught, being humble. And there is something very humble and still profound about this space, touching on what you were saying about the decolonization. I feel like this space takes it a step further, because decolonization is just kicking down the door. Re-indigenizing is where we set up and make it ours again. And this space does feel re-indigenized. And I'm honored that you call on me to be here, to be part of the work that happens. And in reading the little write-up about Shapeshifter and what Délani and Justine have shared, I always picture it's like in our big house when someone gets out on the floor to dance, and you're so moved because you're seeing something so deep and primal, something that is so much of a part of a person's DNA, of their cells, of like what makes them breathe, what makes their heart beat. And when someone shares, whatever the medium is, a piece of themselves, I always want to raise my hands and say, that's it, for trusting us with that, for being brave, for putting it out there, and then just like seeing the ripples that come from it. And I imagine, I'm very protective of some of the work I do, and others I'm like, okay, that's good, and I carry on. And I was really thinking about, there's a line about one of the poems about a woman who relinquishes the need to shrink herself and becomes a landmass. And I saw immediately in my head, I thought, for our Métis brothers and sisters, that's what they've had to do. Their home was relinquished for them. And they became the land masses. They travel, they become the home. They travel with all of what was in the land and what was in the ancestors with them, in essence, kind of becoming the turtles and carrying that with you everywhere you go, and then creating these beautiful poems. It's like the curtains and the walls and the carpet and the furniture. It's kind of like it just wraps us up, and it feels like a home. And I don't take that lightly, because as someone who, I'm very fortunate for all of the peoples around the world, especially here in Turtle Island, who've been displaced, where the women, where I'm learning. I will thank you for your patience. Where the pregnant people conceive their babies and bear their babies on lands that are foreign to them, where from the beginning of history, we conceived and bore our babies on our own lands in our own ways, with our own teachings and our own ceremonies. My women in my direct line, we have never conceived or had our babies anywhere else. When that settled into me, I thought, excuse my language, holy shit. Maybe that's what's like helped me right myself every time I got knocked over or stomped on. And this is all of what kind of like spiraled together, and I felt a little bit like I was like in the epicenter of this like tornado full of all of these beautiful things. A little bit like Toto. We're not in Kansas anymore. The way in the house, and she ended up in Wonderland. That's kind of what I was seeing, like maybe a little bit of like the magical surrealism, as well as like really scary upheaval. And where you land is where you land. And I'm grateful that you have landed here. I'm grateful that we have landed here. I raise my hands to to the space, to everybody connected to the space, to Patricia, to all of the artists, to the people who come to show support and love and to breathe life, so it can kind of have its own heartbeat and its own lungs. And I ask you all to maybe, for your ancestors and for yourselves, if these aren't your lands, to, in gentle ways for yourself, to find out about who do your people come from, what are your people's ways. Even if you only know one word of the language, use it every day. Share, because when we share who we are, as you have with the poetry, we share who our ancestors are. And for me, that's who I do my work with and for, is the ancestors. There's a lot of people doing work for the future. There's a lot of people doing work for the present. My work has always been about the old ones who've been gone for a long time. And this is making it extra hard with my counselor to be here now. Like, but I'm always not there. I swear, like, it messes with my head. I'm like, no, now. And then they're like, no, then. And I'm like, okay, when I'm not working, how about we come to a compromise? So I will close with saying, right here and right now, I'm really honored to be here with you. I'm honored to be asked to come in and put the down on the floor, to sweep the floor, to call in the ancestors, to, in essence, in our old ways, anybody who came here would have to like present themselves. We would greet you, and it would be made clear that we need to know who you are, we need to know where you're from, we need to know what is your purpose here, and if you're granted permission to stay, how long will you stay, and how will the work and the time here benefit the land and the people. And if any one of these things doesn't fall in line with how we maintain our lands and our cultures and our society, you can hit the bricks or we're going to put your head on a stake. And so much of the time people say that sounds harsh, but what sounds harsh to me is, the title here, Genocide Laid Bare. That's harsh to me. And that we are still bringing forward beautiful words and images, and even in looking at the residential school images, worse, because 40 more babies were unearthed today. There was an announcement, St. Augustine, where St. Augustine School used to be. So while you're thinking of yourselves and your ancestors and reconnecting in any way you can, I ask also for special prayers for those babies and all the ones connected to them. I don't know where my Auntie Florence went. I know she passed at 4.5 at residential school, and we don't know if she got to come home or not. So that's the next step of my journey, is trying to find her now. And my granny wasn't even able to do our ceremonies for her baby. So I do those ceremonies for her, and I feel like that's what happens in these spaces, is also ceremony. I'm going to finish with a song to really ground and call in the ancestors in whatever way you pray, in whatever way you talk to your creator, your God, your Buddha, your Allah, your Gaia, your own spirit, stars, whatever that is for you. Feel free to pray or call to them in your own ways. Thanks, Erica. Thank you.